The plasma bolt screamed past Lieutenant Marcus Chen's helmet, scorching the air where his head had been a heartbeat before. He rolled behind the shattered remains of a Vryaxan temple wall, frost crystals exploding under his weight. The child's scream cut through the chaos, high, terrified, unmistakably young. Chen's tactical display showed 17 hostiles, all Vryaxan warriors in full combat armor. The ceasefire was 3 minutes old. Someone hadn't gotten the message, or didn't care. "Hold fire," he transmitted to his squad. "Repeat, hold fire. Ceasefire is active." Another scream. Closer now. Chen risked a glance around the stone. The battlefield stretched before him, a frozen wasteland littered with the debris of 8 months of war. Smoke rose from countless fires, turning the pale sky gray. Between the human and Vryaxan lines, a small figure stumbled through the snow. A Vryaxan child. Maybe 5 years old by human standards, though Chin knew their biology aged differently. The child's crystalline skin caught the dim light, refracting it in desperate flashes. Blue blood stained its torn clothing. "Sir, movement on the Vryaxan side," Corporal Hayes said through the comm. "Looks like I see it." The entire Vryaxan line had frozen. Not in fear. In something else. Recognition, maybe? Or horror. At the center of their formation stood a figure Chin recognized from intelligence briefings. Queen Shirvar herself, commander of the Vryaxan Third Fleet, architect of the assault on New Hebrides. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her armor gleaming despite the battle's filth. But she wasn't moving. None of them were. The child ran forward, tiny legs pumping through snow that reached its waist. It fell, scrambled up, kept running. Toward the human lines. Toward Chin. "Sir, what do we—" "Nobody moves," Chin said. His rifle stayed lowered. The child was 50 meters away. 40. "Nobody fires." "That's an order." He could see the child's face now. Trails of blue blood ran from a cut above its eye. Its breathing came in panicked gasps, creating small clouds in the frozen air. It kept looking back over its shoulder, not at the Vryaxan lines, but at something beyond them. Something that had scared it worse than an entire human regiment. 20 meters. Chin stepped out from behind the wall. Heard Hayes curse. Ignored it. He knelt in the snow, set his rifle down beside him. Raised both hands, palms forward. The child's eyes, large, multifaceted, terrified, locked onto his. 10 meters. "Chun, what are you doing?" Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled in his ear. "Get back to cover." 5 meters. The child stumbled one final time and fell forward. Chin caught it before it hit the ground. The impact knocked him back a step. The child was heavier than it looked, denser. Its crystalline skin was cold against his gloved hands. It grabbed onto his armor with surprising strength, small fingers finding purchase in the tactical webbing. It pressed its face against his chest plate, and made a sound, part sob, part keening wail. Chin looked up. Across the battlefield, Queen Shirvara had moved. Just one step forward, but it might as well have been a light year. Her hand was extended, reaching. Her head was tilted at an angle that spoke of something beyond tactical assessment. Every weapon on the Vryaxan line tracked toward him. Plasma cannons, rifles, sidearms. Dozens of targeting lasers painted red dots across his armor. His squad returned the gesture. The entire human defensive position had their weapons raised, centered on the child in his arms. On him. The air felt impossibly heavy. The child's breathing rattled in its chest. Chin could feel its heart beating, fast, too fast, through the armor. "Sir?" Hayes whispered. "Sir, please step back slowly." Chin didn't move. Couldn't move. The child's grip tightened. It made another sound, softer now. Not words he could understand, but the meaning was universal. "Please." He adjusted his grip, supporting the child's weight more securely. Its blood was staining his gloves, dripping onto the snow in bright blue drops. Queen Shirvara took another step forward. Her hand remained extended. Every warrior in her guard tensed. Chin saw their formation tighten, saw the way they positioned themselves to shield their queen while maintaining clear firing lines. Professional. Disciplined. Waiting. The child shifted in his arms, turning its head to look back at the Vryaxan line. At the queen. It made a sound, a single syllable that might have been a word in their language. Then, it burrowed deeper against Chen's chest, hiding. Chen's training said to retreat. Protocol said to hand the child to medical personnel behind the lines. Every tactical instinct said that standing in the open between two armed forces was suicide. But the child's grip on his armor said something else. The way it trembled said something else. The way it had chosen to run toward humans instead of back to its own kind said everything. He looked at Queen Shirvara. Met her eyes across the frozen battlefield. Saw something in them he hadn't expected to see in a Vryaxan warrior. Fear. Not for herself. For the child. Chen made his decision. He straightened slowly, keeping the child secure against his chest. Took one careful step backward. Then another. Moving toward the human lines, toward cover, towards safety. The queen's hand dropped to her side. She stood perfectly still, watching. The targeting lasers didn't waver from his armor. Chen, Rodriguez said. Status. I have a wounded Vryaxan juvenile, Chen said. His voice was steady. Requesting immediate medical assistance. Are you out of your, sir? The child ran into our lines. Under ceasefire conditions. It's injured and terrified. I need medical. Now. Silence on the comm then. Copy. Medical team en route. Shin, you just started an incident. Yes, sir. I know, sir. The child's breathing had slowed slightly. Its grip remained tight, but the trembling had lessened. Shin kept moving backward, one step at a time. The Vryaxan weapons tracked his movement. His squad maintained their defensive positions. Nobody fired. He reached the temple wall. Hayes grabbed his shoulder, pulled him behind cover. The child flinched at the sudden movement, made a small sound of distress. I've got you, Chen said softly. Knew it couldn't understand the words. Hoped it understood the tone. You're safe now. Across the battlefield, Queen Shirvara remained frozen in place. Watching. Waiting. The war had just become infinitely more complicated. The medical tent smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. Chen stood against the far wall, arms crossed, while Dr. Sarah Kim examined the child. 2 armed guards flanked the entrance. Captain Rodriguez stood beside Chen, his expression unreadable. The child lay on the examination table, its crystalline skin reflecting the harsh medical lights. It hadn't let go of the piece of Chen's tactical webbing it had torn off during the transfer to medical. The fabric was clutched in one small fist, held against its chest like a talisman. Multiple lacerations, Kim said, not looking up from her scanner. Some kind of toxin in the bloodstream, native to this planet, I think. Not from weapons fire. The child was poisoned by something environmental. How bad? Rodriguez asked. Survivable, with treatment. But it needs Vryaxan-compatible medicine. Our supplies aren't designed for their biology. Kim glanced at Chen. You did the right thing, Lieutenant. Another hour in the cold and this child would have died. Rodriguez grunted. That's not the problem. Then what is? The Vryaxans want it back. Queen Shirvar herself has requested immediate return of the child under Article 7 of the ceasefire agreement. Article 7 covers prisoners of war, Chen said. The child isn't a prisoner. It came to us. Semantics won't help here, Lieutenant. The tent flap opened. Colonel James Harridan entered, followed by 2 members of his command staff. Everyone in the tent straightened. The child on the table looked up at the sudden movement, eyes widening. Harridan was a tall man, lean and weathered from 3 decades of service. His gray eyes took in the scene with practiced efficiency. At ease. Dr. Kim, how's our patient? Stable, sir. But needs specialized treatment. Can we provide it? Not adequately. The Vryaxans could. Harridan nodded. walked closer to the examination table. The child tracked his movement but didn't try to flee. Just held tighter to the piece of webbing. Queen Shirvara has made her position clear, Harridan said. The child is royal bloodline. Her daughter, as it turns out. He let that hang in the air for a moment. She wants the child returned immediately, with formal apologies for the abduction. Abduction? Chen's voice was sharp. Sir, the child ran to us. I didn't. I know what happened, Lieutenant. I've reviewed the helmet cam footage. Every camera caught it. Human and Vryaxan both. Harridan's expression didn't change. That's not how the Vryaxan High Command is characterizing the incident. Rodriguez stepped forward. With respect, sir, we have multiple witnesses and video evidence. The child came to us of its own will. The Vryaxans claimed the child was confused, frightened by the battle. That Lieutenant Chen's presence in the neutral zone was a violation of ceasefire protocols. That's bullshit, and they know it, Chen said. Lieutenant, sir, the child was running from something. Not toward us, away from something else. You saw the footage. It kept looking back, behind the Vryaxan lines. Something scared it enough to risk running through an active battlefield. Harridan studied him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we ask the child what happened before we hand it over. It doesn't speak standard. Then, we find a translator. Sir, with respect, if we return the child without understanding why it ran, we might be sending it back to whatever it was running from. Dr. Kim cleared her throat. The child's injuries are consistent with a fall, but the toxin bothers me. It's from a plant that grows in the deep caves south of here. Why would a royal child be anywhere near those caves during a battle? The tent went quiet. Outside, Shin could hear the sounds of the camp, soldiers moving equipment, generators humming, the distant crack of ice shifting under stress. The child made a soft sound. Everyone turned. It was looking at Chin, extending one small hand toward him. Chin moved without thinking, crossing the tent to stand beside the examination table. The child's hand found his, gripped it with surprising strength. The crystalline skin was still cold, but warming. It trusts you, Kim said quietly. It's afraid, Chin corrected. There's a difference. Harridan watched this exchange with calculating eyes. We're in a difficult position, Lieutenant. The ceasefire is fragile. 8 months of war, millions dead on both sides. The child is Queen Shirvara's only offspring. If we refuse to return it, we give them cause to resume hostilities. And if we return it blindly, we might be complicit in whatever the child was running from, Chen said. You're asking me to risk the peace for a theory. I'm asking you to verify before we act, sir. Rodriguez spoke up. Colonel, we could request a neutral meeting. Allow the Queen to approach under white flag, speak with the child in our presence. If the child wants to go back, we return it. If not, he trailed off. If not, we've just taken a royal hostage and guaranteed the war continues. Harridan finished. The child squeezed Chen's hand. Made another soft sound. It was still clutching the piece of webbing, still watching Chen's face. Harridan pulled out his comm unit. Get me Lieutenant Voss. I need our best Vryaxan linguists in the medical tent immediately. He looked at Chen. We'll try your way, Lieutenant. But if this goes wrong, it's on your head. Yes, sir. And, Chen? If the child needs to go back, you let it go. Understood? Chen looked down at the small hand gripping his. Felt the trembling that still ran through the child's frame. Saw the fear in those multifaceted eyes. Yes, sir, he said. He wasn't sure if he meant it. Lieutenant Voss was a compact woman with neural interface ports running along her temple, linguistic enhancement implants that let her process alien languages in real time. She stood beside the examination table, speaking slowly in what Chen's universal translator rendered as heavily accented Vryaxan. The child listened, tilting its head at angles that seemed impossible for anything with human-like anatomy. Then it responded. The words were rapid, high-pitched, full of clicks and crystalline chimes that the translator struggled to parse. Voss's expression grew troubled. Well? Harridan asked. Its name is Kir Shah. It's 7 standard years old. And it says. Voss paused, choosing words carefully. It says it cannot go back. That going back means death. The tent went silent. Death from what? Rodriguez asked. It's not being entirely clear. Keeps mentioning the ceremony and the deep ones. Says its mother couldn't protect it, that its mother sent it away. Queen Shivara sent her own child to us? Harridan's skepticism was evident. Not to us specifically. Just away. The child says it was being prepared for something. Something that required the toxin Dr. Kim found in its system. Kim leaned forward. The toxin is from the depth vine, a plant that grows in the caves. In small doses it's hallucinogenic. In larger doses fatal. The Vryaxans are supposed to be immune. Supposed to be, Voss said. But Kir Shah isn't full Vryaxan. It's hybrid. Everyone stared. Hybrid with what? Chen asked. The child's genetics show markers from another species. The Vryaxans call them the Andhari, the deep ones. They're native to this planet, predating the Vryaxan colonies by millennia. Most humans have never seen one. They live in the cave systems, rarely surface. Rodriguez pulled up his tactical display, scrolling through xenobiology files. The Andhari are listed as extinct. Clearly not, Voss said. And according to Kir Shah, there's a treaty between the Vryaxans and the Andhari. Has been for centuries. Part of that treaty involves. She hesitated. Sacrifices. The Vryaxans provide the Andhari with hybrid children every generation. The children are raised until a certain age, then prepared with the toxin and given to the deep ones. Jesus Christ, Kim whispered. Harridan's expression had gone stone cold. Are you telling me Queen Shivara was preparing to sacrifice her own daughter? I'm telling you what the child is telling me. Whether it's true or mistaken or. Kir Shah made a sharp sound, pulling away from Voss. It turned to Chin, spoke rapidly. The translator caught fragments. Showed me the cave, said I would be honored, but the deep ones' faces, I ran. Mother called after me, but. The child's voice broke. It pressed against Chen's side, trembling again. Chin put a hand on its shoulder. Felt the crystalline texture of its skin through his glove. How do we verify this? We don't, Harridan said. We can't walk into Vryaxan territory and demand proof of a cultural practice they'd kept hidden for centuries. Then, we don't return the child, Chin said. And restart the war. Sir, if what Kir Shah is saying is true, if it's true, we're interfering in internal Vryaxan affairs. If it's false, we're holding a royal hostage based on a child's fantasy. Harridan rubbed his temples. There's no good option here. The comm unit on his belt chirped. He answered it, listened, his expression growing darker. Understood. I'll be there shortly. He looked at the group. Queen Shivara has crossed into the neutral zone. She's requesting direct parley. Demanding her daughter's return and threatening to resume hostilities if we don't comply within the hour. We need more time, Kim said. We don't have more time. The ceasefire was supposed to be the first step toward actual peace. Instead, we're 30 minutes from full-scale combat resuming. Harridan looked at Kir Shah. The child comes with me. If the Queen can provide reasonable explanation for its injuries and fears, we return it. If not, what? Chen asked. We keep it? Start a war over one child. Would you prefer we hand it over to die? Chen had no answer for that. Harridan moved toward the exit. Dr. Kim, make the child presentable. Lieutenant Chen, you're with me. The Queen specifically requested your presence. Mine? Why? Because the child trusts you. And because Queen Shivara wants to look the man who took her daughter in the eye. The neutral zone was a stretch of frozen ground between the two armies, marked by plasma burn scars and the wreckage of disabled vehicles. A small pavilion had been erected at its center, white fabric stretched over a carbon fiber frame, open on all sides. No cover, no concealment. Neutral ground in every sense. Queen Shivara stood at one end of the pavilion, flanked by 4 members of her royal guard. She wore ceremonial armor, more ornate than the battle gear Chen had seen before. Her crystalline skin caught the pale sunlight, casting rainbow reflections across the snow. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Colonel Harridan walked beside Chen, with Kir Shah between them. The child held Chen's hand in a death grip. Lieutenant Voss followed 2 steps behind, ready to translate. They stopped at the pavilion's edge. The Vryaxan guards tensed, hands moving toward weapons but not drawing. Chen's own squad maintained overwatch from defensive positions 50 meters back. 100 rifles on each side, all waiting for an excuse. Queen Shivara, Harridan said. Voss translated. Thank you for agreeing to meet. The Queen's eyes never left her daughter. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made Chen's teeth ache. The translator rendered it in flat, emotionless standard. Return, my child. We need to understand what happened first. What happened is that your soldier abducted my daughter during a ceasefire. This is an act of war. The child came to us, Harridan said. Of her own will. She was injured and afraid. She was confused. The battle frightened her. Children do not understand war. Voss translated back and forth while Chen watched the Queen's body language. Vryaxan physiology was different enough that most human social cues didn't apply, but there was something in the way Shivara stood, too rigid, too controlled, that spoke of barely restrained emotion. Your daughter says she was running from something, Harridan said. Something in the caves behind your lines. The Queen's guard shifted. Subtle, but Chen caught it. The child has an active imagination, Shivara said. All children do. She has toxin from the depth vine in her bloodstream. Were you aware of that? A pause. Barely a second, but it was there. I was not. The toxin is only found in the deep caves. How did she come into contact with it? I do not know. Perhaps during the battle, there was no depth vine near the battlefield, Voss said, her voice quiet but firm. The plant grows in specific conditions deep underground. The child would have had to be taken into the caves deliberately. The Queen's guards moved closer to her. Protective positions. Their hands were definitely near their weapons now. You question my word? Shivara's voice carried danger. We question the circumstances, Harridan said. Your daughter says she was being prepared for a ceremony. Something involving the Andhari. Every Vryaxan in the pavilion went perfectly still. Chen felt Kir Shah's hand tighten around his. The child made a soft, frightened sound. The child speaks of old stories, Shivara said after a long moment. Legends told to frighten the young. The Andhari are extinct. Then, why does your daughter have Andhari genetic markers? The Queen's head tilted. You tested her? We treated her injuries. The genetic scan was standard medical procedure. You had no right. We had every right to ensure we could safely care for an injured child. Harridan's voice remained level. Queen Shivara, if there's something you need to tell us about your daughter's situation, now would be the time. The Queen looked at Kir Shah. Really looked at her, in a way that made Chen's chest tighten. There was something in that gaze, pain maybe? Or regret. Or something else entirely that human eyes couldn't properly interpret. Give me my daughter, Shivara said softly. Please. Can you guarantee her safety? Chen asked. Everyone turned to look at him. Harridan shot him a warning glance, but Chen ignored it. Can you guarantee, he repeated, that if we return Kir Shah to you, she won't be harmed? The Queen's eyes fixed on him. Chen forced himself to meet her gaze. To not look away from whatever he saw there. You do not understand our ways, Shivara said. Then, explain them. I cannot. Because they involve killing children? The guards' weapons came out. Chen's squad raised their rifles in response. The air filled with the high-pitched whine of charging plasma weapons. Stand down! Harridan barked. Nobody moved. Shah whimpered and pressed against Chen's leg. Queen Shirvara raised one hand. Her guards lowered their weapons fractionally. You speak of things you do not comprehend, human. Then help me comprehend, Chen said. Your daughter is terrified. She ran through an active battlefield to escape something. She has poison in her blood and trauma in her eyes. If there's an explanation that makes this acceptable, I'm listening. The queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, quieter, stripped of the formal harmonics. The treaty is old. Older than our colony. Older than our presence on this world. We made promises to survive. Promises that required. She looked at her daughter again. Sacrifices. Children, Kim said from where she'd been standing quietly at the pavilion's edge. You promised them children. Hybrid children. Born of both species. Given to the Anhari when they reach the age of reason, to maintain the peace. And if you don't? Harridan asked. The Anhari are many. We are few. This is their world. We are guests. Shirvara's voice carried weight. The treaty keeps my people alive. How many children? Chen heard himself ask. One per generation. Every 7 years. The queen's eyes were back on Shah. It is always the royal line. Always my burden to bear. You have other children? I have one child. Only one. Shirvara took a step forward. The guards tensed but didn't intervene. She is everything to me. But she is also the price of my people's survival. Shah made a sound, a keening wail that cut through the frozen air. The child buried its face against Chen's leg. So you were going to kill her? Chen said. To save your people. I was going to honor the treaty. To fulfill my duty. The queen's voice cracked, the first true emotion Chen had heard from her. I was going to do what every queen before me has done. What my mother did. What my grandmother did. I was going to sacrifice everything I love for everything I rule. But you sent her away, Voss said quietly. When the moment came, you sent her away. Shirvara's hand dropped to her side. I showed her the cave. Prepared her as tradition requires. Walked her to the edge of the deep places. And when she looked at me, when she asked if it would hurt. The queen's voice fell to barely a whisper. I could not. I told her to run. To hide. That I would find another way. There is no other way. One of the guards said. The treaty, damn the treaty! Shirvara's voice rang with authority and anguish. I have given them everything. My time. My decisions. My soul. I will not give them my daughter. The guards stepped back. All 4 of them looked uncertain now, caught between duty and their queen's clear distress. Harridan spoke carefully. If you break the treaty, what happens? War. With the Anhari. A war we cannot win. Shirvara looked at him. But perhaps a war we can survive, if we have allies. If we have humans. The pieces clicked into place in Chen's mind. That's why you requested ceasefire. Not because you were losing, but because you needed human forces on planet when you broke the treaty. I needed options. I needed hope. I needed my daughter to have a chance. The queen's eyes were back on Shah. I sent her to you because you humans have a reputation. You do not abandon your young. You fight for them, even when it is tactically foolish. Even when it costs you everything. You're asking us to go to war, Harridan said. Against an enemy we know nothing about, for a people we've been fighting for 8 months. I am asking you to save a child. The rest. Shirvara made a gesture Chen's translator interpreted as resignation. The rest is politics. Shah looked up at Chen. Those large, multifaceted eyes held questions no 7-year-old should have to ask. The child's hand trembled in his. Chen looked at Harridan. The colonel's expression was unreadable, but Chen could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Strategic value. Political complications. Alliance possibilities. Military risk. Sir, Chen said quietly. We can't send her back. I know. I know what it means, Lieutenant. Harridan turned to Queen Shirvara. If we protect your daughter, we need full disclosure about the Anhari. Numbers, capabilities, territorial extent. Everything. You will have it. And your forces will fight alongside ours. Not as enemies turned allies, but as genuine coalition. Shared command. Shared intelligence. Shared risk. Agreed. The ceasefire becomes an armistice. We defend this planet together or we fall separately. Shirvara bowed her head. When she looked up, something had changed in her bearing. You have my word. And my gratitude. Harridan looked at Chin. Lieutenant, it appears you just allied humanity with the Vryaxan Empire. I hope you're pleased with yourself. Sir, that was a compliment, son. Badly delivered but sincere. Harridan turned back to Shirvara. Your daughter stays with our medical team until she's fully recovered. You're welcome to visit under supervised conditions. After that, we'll need to discuss long-term arrangements. She should remain with Lieutenant Chin. Shirvara said. She trusts him. Trust is rare enough. We should not waste it. Everyone looked at Chin. He looked down at Kir Shah, who was still clinging to his hand. Sir, I'm not qualified to, you're qualified enough. Dr. Kim will supervise medical care. Lieutenant Voss will handle linguistic education. But day-to-day guardianship? Harridan's expression might have been the ghost of a smile. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You just became a foster parent. Chin opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked at Kir Shah. The child gazed up at him with something that might have been hope. Yes, sir, he said. Queen Shirvara approached slowly, giving Kir Shah time to see her coming. The child tensed but didn't try to run. The queen knelt, a gesture that put her at eye level with her daughter, and which caused her guards visible distress at the breach in protocol. She spoke in Vryaxan, too fast and complex for the translator to fully parse. But Chin caught fragments. Safe now. And, forgive me. And, never meant. Kir Shah reached out with her free hand. Touched her mother's face. The queen closed her eyes. Then, the child turned back to Chin and pressed close to his side. Shirvara stood slowly. She understands. Better than I hoped. She looked at Chin. You have given me back something I thought lost forever. If there is ever anything I can do to repay that debt. Keep your people alive, Chin said. Help us stop whatever's coming from those caves. That'll be payment enough. The queen nodded. Turned to her guards. Summon the War Council. We have new allies and old enemies to discuss. She paused at the pavilion's edge, looking back one last time at her daughter. Tell her I love her. When she is ready to hear it. Then, she was gone, striding back toward the Vryaxan lines with her guards in formation around her. Harridan let out a long breath. Well, that could have gone worse. Could have gone better too, sir. Always does, Lieutenant. Always does. Harridan looked at Kir Shah. Get her back to medical. Then, report to my office. We have a lot of planning to do. Yes, sir. Chen walked back toward the human lines, Kir Shah's hand still firmly in his. The child was quiet now, not looking back at the Vryaxan forces. Just walking forward, step by step. Behind them, the two armies began to stand down. Weapons were lowered. Positions were relaxed. The war, the surface war, anyway, was over. But Chin could see the cave entrances in the distance, dark mouths in the frozen mountainside. Could imagine what might be waiting in those depths. The war was over. And it was just beginning. He squeezed Kir Shah's hand gently. The child squeezed back. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Human and Vryaxan. Foster parent and frightened child. Allies against the dark.